You have entered the realm of dead air. For the next 2 hours, you will be transported into the world of the strange and the supernatural. You might not feel the need to cleanse your laptops or mobile devices afterwards. But it might not be a bad idea.
Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dead Air.
So I watched the movie Barbie. I'll never get that time back.
That wasn't a documentary?
Well, the thing of it is that, good evening, everybody, by the way, and welcome to Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We are simulcast with KGRADB.com, KGRA on Facebook. I'm George Lopez, and the other side of the screen is Ken DaCosta. No, I haven't watched anything about it, reactions or anything, because it seemed to be hyped up. And I'm sitting there going, if they did this anything like Deadpool or some of this, really good hard humor, adult humor, this is going to be funny as can be.
So it's not a documentary then. There is no actual person named Barbie?
I would have enjoyed a documentary over this.
That's a big letdown.
Yeah. Got me today, early Christmas present, thanking my sisters who came to visit Pop, a K-Mini, a Keurig Mini.
Nice.
Pretty strong, actually, the coffee. So I'm thrilled to have, family that are that generous to get me something like that. They could have bought me a little thing of Folgers coffee crystals. I'd have been happy with that. But thank you, love you, and happy holidays to you guys. This is our final show of the year tonight. We are going, of course, take off Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And it's not because we're going to go out and drink and be merry or anything of that sort. But we hope that you are going to drink and be merry during that time. So we're thankful for you guys in the chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome, of course. And, we've got some exciting stuff going on tonight. Michael Schratt's going to be joining us here in a little bit. And hopefully we can somehow, some way get some free abduction suggestions, how we can do this, because every single one of us wanted to get hell off this planet already, But Ken, how are you doing? What's going on with you? And is there anything that you needed to address or bring up before we get to our guest tonight?
No, still recovering from a procedure that I just had Monday, so I may pop in and out of here tonight, depending. I did a lot of walking around Newport, Rhode Island yesterday, and I felt great, but I paid a price for it. Kind of set myself back a couple of days, so just trying to be as comfortable as possible. But everything went well, and here we are. As far as addressing anything, I just wanted to let everyone know who might have watched last week's show in archives and noticed that it disappeared. It certainly wasn't intentional on our part.
It's a great mystery.
A couple of different things can force a video into private mode. I learned about these this week. So either there was something that went against YouTube standards, or it was third-party interference, somebody trying to download it or pirate it or something.
Fact.
And I have switched it back to public on 3 different occasions during the course of the night, and the following morning, by the afternoon, it was gone. So there was no intent to take anything down or hide anything. But those kind of things happen, and I wish I was smart enough in the technical world to give you a whole breakdown on it. But that's the story as far as what happened, and it's unfortunate because I thought it was a good show. But it's gone. And I don't know if I'm satisfied with the explanation from YouTube, but there it goes. So we hope we don't have a repeat of that in the future. And so that covers last week's show and why it's in the ether right now. So
I blame it on the demons, and if we lose tonight's show as well, I'll blame that on the aliens because
yeah,
it fits what we do. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, also the thumbs up for the content on our channel, and as always, the reminder bell. Make sure you guys hit that. That'll give you indications for any and all of the wonderful programming that we have here on Dead Air Full Spectrum. So, but Ken, over to you, sir. And I know you're excited about tonight. This is your early Christmas present, isn't it?
it is, because anybody who follows us know that my involvement in all of this stuff started with the UFO phenomena going back to when I was a child, you know, and when astronauts were actual heroes and space launches weren't mundane as they are now. And then this other thing came along that was really puzzling to a 9 or 10-year-old kid who was starting to read these things. So it's always nice to go back to your roots. And tonight is really exciting for me because we are going to welcome one of the foremost authorities on UFO crash retrieval programs. Michael Schratt is a private pilot and an aviation historian, and he's been investigating UFO encounters for well over 25 years. Between 2008 and 2009, Michael meticulously reviewed a minimum of 50,000 cases, 50,000, which were preserved at the Center of UFO Studies archives in Chicago, Illinois. And in an effort to maintain an important part of our national history, Michael recreated dozens of highly credible UFO cases by the use of drawings, illustrations, and commissioned artwork. Many of these include USO, or Unidentified Submerged Objects, actual extraterrestrial encounters, and prehistory UFO cases which have never seen the light of day. So we hope to shed a spotlight on some of those tonight, but without further ado, please welcome a very special guest tonight, Mr. Michael Schratt.
Hello, gentlemen. Good to be with you.
Good evening, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be interesting tonight. We are going to get into the weeds, as they say, a little bit on these things, and perhaps shed some light on some things that maybe the public doesn't know as we disseminate more and more information on this phenomenon tonight. So really, really looking forward to it. So
Great.
I suppose the first question is, everybody has an origin story. Michael, what is yours in terms of your leap into the interest of UFO, UAP phenomena, and when did it happen for you?
Okay. The best way to describe it is I owe it to my father for opening me up to aviation. It's been a part of my life from the very beginning. My dad used to take me to these old air museums, and they had these warbirds rotting out in the field. You know, they had cracked windshield, and they had oxidized paint, and the paint was chipped and falling off, and it just had this ghostly appeal. You might see like a bomber way out in the field. It just had this aura about it. That was really the origin point for my love of aviation. And then living, just a few hours from Oshkosh, which is the world's largest air show, went to that for 27 years straight. Started flying gliders at an early age, and then transitioned to private pilot. And then I started piecing these puzzle pieces together about the classified aircraft within the military industrial complex. And then that led to even more exotic type propulsion systems. And then that kind of goes right into the Leonard Stringfield crash retrieval cases. And that's how it really began for me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, our interest came from aviation, both of us. Mine was firmly on the ground while yours was in the air, obviously. I wanted to begin by, getting this out of the way. 5 months ago, we saw the congressional testimony of David Grush, most notably Commander David Fravor, who was a eyes-on observant of unusual activity, looking into UAPs. So, generally speaking, can you give us your takeaway on that? Because a lot of people have seen it. I watched the whole thing. I'm sure
Mhm.
you have too. Initial thoughts on that?
Initial thoughts. Well, really, it boils down to the credibility of our military whistleblowers, our firsthand military witnesses. And I think, now that this UAP disclosure legislation has somewhat been axed, I wouldn't say it's game over, but I think we took a hit. We're going to need a lot more of these military witnesses to come forward as a united coalition. That's how we're going to move this whole ball forward. And personally, I think it's going to be the physical evidence, the debris, the craft, and the bodies that are going to be needed to hand it over to the scientific community. And that's really how we're going to move this forward. It's clear that our political leaders are dragging their feet, for one. And number two, how can they declassify something they don't have access to? A lot of times they don't have the security clearances and they have not been read into these programs. So we're fighting this uphill battle, but we need more of these firsthand military witnesses to come forward. And I hope to discuss some of those retrieval cases tonight that includes those.
Absolutely. So, I mean, a very simple question for you, Michael. Everything is so compartmentalized. No one really knows the full picture. They know their part of it. They know the bits and pieces. In your mind, is there any entity or any individual who knows the whole story?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well,
Everything.
just like you mentioned, the two ways that they've been able to keep this secret. Well, actually, there's three ways. Number one, they compartmentalize this information, just like you mentioned. Number two is they keep on moving these assets around. So originally, something might be at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and then they would move it to MacDill Air Force Base, or they'd move it to Homestead Air Force Base, or Eglin Air Force Base. It's possible. They would move these assets around. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But then the other thing, too, is this subject matter as a whole has a self-protection system built into it. It's an automatic self-protection system built into it because these stories are so crazy, so outlandish, so impossible to actually believe could be true that it protects itself. That's what we're up against too. And the giggle factor. When you throw all those together, you can see why the defense contractors have been successful in keeping this under wraps. And it's very clear that that's what's been going on here. They are probably the ones that paid off the politicians to axe this UAP legislation. So that's something we're up against too.
Yeah, I mean, when we start talking about legacy programs, and for anybody out there that doesn't know what I'm talking about, essentially these are programs that have existed for years in studying UFO phenomena. And we're all familiar with things like Private Sign, Project Grudge, Blue Book, which really essentially, to me, correct me if you feel differently, they were more public relations programs than they were actual studies. But can you talk a little bit about the seriousness of which the military, our government, Department of Defense did study these things and took them seriously? What is kind of like the time frame and the degree for that when some of these legacy programs first came into existence? Are we talking 1947 and afterwards, or are we Cold War here? What is kind of like the timeline when they were learning things they don't want to tell us?
Okay. So to kind of get into your question here, this whole subject of UFOs was classified higher than the atomic bomb. That's number one. It was above top secret. The other thing to keep in mind too is we need to talk about the flap of 47 and the flap of 52. In fact, the flap of 52 was even larger than the flap of 47. If there's anybody listening to this broadcast and you have a friend or family member that is sitting on the fence or that might be skeptical about this whole phenomenon, you can just go to NICAP.org and go to their chronology list and type in 52. And if it's a rainy Sunday afternoon like today, you could just spend an hour or so going through these military pilot witness UFO sightings from our military pilots. And there's just dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of these things. Our pilots are not lying. And in fact, in the early 1950s, there was a call that went out by the Air Force to all of our pilots to shoot these things down. If there's nothing to UFOs, why was this urgent call put out to our Air Force pilots to shoot these things down? Obviously, the defense contractors, in conjunction with the United States military, they wanted to exploit the technology for weapons applications, propulsion, free energy. That's what they were after. And so that's why there's this horrible urgency to shoot these things down.
Do me a quick favor, Michael. You said a website, and I had typed it in nightcap.org.
Nightcap.org, yes.
NIGHTCAP?
NICAP.org.
Okay.
Nightcap. Yes.
Okay, that's what I missed.
And
All
there's
right,
a chronology section there, and it's all by date. And you can go and you can spend as much time as you want there, but specifically 52, you cannot go through that listing and walk away and say, "Oh, there's nothing to this. There's nothing to this." You just can't do it, because it's the credibility of the military witnesses.
Particularly what happened over Washington, D.C. airspace.
Correct. Consecutive weekends in 52, yes.
When we sent up maybe 3 different squadrons.
F-94s were sent up.
You know, I don't want to. So let's talk a little bit about, before I bring George in, a former, an Air Force veteran himself. Okay, so the chain of command on these things, in my understanding, goes crash UFO, something like this.
Right.
CIA is made aware. They dispatch Air Force Special Ops to the scene. Special Ops takes possession of the craft and any related debris, and then it's sent to military contractors for inspection and possible reverse engineering. In a nutshell, I probably left out a lot of stuff there, Michael, but does it go something like that, or is it something different?
I like the way you're thinking. I like that. Now, the best way I can describe it is some of the things that Leonard had talked about. There is a rapid response military retrieval team that flies Bell UH-1 helicopters, that flies CH-47 Chinook twin rotor helicopters. The pilots that fly these things are called Blue Boys. And as you mentioned, once there is a crash that takes place, they set up perimeter screens, they set up diversionary tactics. Certainly the CIA is involved, but we also need to mention that the Atomic Energy Commission is also involved, and the United States Navy is also involved. So these two entities are in bed with each other. The Atomic Energy Commission and the United States Navy, they play a big role in this, in conjunction with the defense contractors.
Well, so I mean, you have the FAA, military, NASA, a lot of these entities aren't forthcoming. But is it because of the phenomenal sums of money that these contractors and corporations pay for? I don't know if I want to use the word rights to it, but contractually to do these things, to either weaponize them or to monetize them.
Yeah, that's the dirty deals that the defense contractors make with the United States government. So they basically come to these contractors and say that we don't care what you need to do. You're welcome to commercialize this. You're welcome to profit from this. We just want to get the technology and the propulsion systems. And you're welcome to keep this under wraps if you want, and trickle down the technology into the white world over the next 50 years and profit and commercialize. They're fine doing that. Anything for the propulsion systems, the weapon systems. It's like they will part the Red Sea for this. They absolutely will.
It makes a whole lot of sense to me, Michael, that the government wants to control and hide, to avoid, of course, any type of external leaks that go to other governments in other countries. They want to kind of keep everything harnessed in. isn't that a contradiction to the disclosure demand that's going on at the same time? In other words, what is the end game for those requesting disclosure? What is the ultimate win by getting the government to say, yes, we have these craft. Yes, we have these alien corpses.
Okay.
Yes, we've reverse engineered the technology for this, that, or the other. What is the benefit to society to be bringing all that information forward?
Okay. The 40,000-foot look down view of that question is that
Please.
the propulsion systems and free energy systems associated with these vehicles could rid us from foreign oil reserves. It could take out the internal combustion engine. It could take out basically the nuclear power plants, the solar plants, all the wind farms. It could be a revolution in technology, and that's what we're shooting for. This is something that could happen rapidly. It doesn't need to take 3 decades to do. And that's the fight that we're up against, because it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry that still wants us to be living 100 years in back of where we should be. That's another fight that we're up against. Yes.
And that's the difference between the 40,000 foot view and the ground level. And the ground level, here in the trenches,
Right.
is you have these conglomerate companies that are out there that do have a chokehold on our nation's politics. And, it's like the urban legend that we've always heard of patents that are out there that are bought by these conglomerates so that they cannot move forward in those certain technologies, because they want to do the slow crawl and drain every last bit of money and oil out of what it is that they're doing first. Are our technologies advancing quickly? I would say in the last 20 years, the technology has advanced ridiculously fast. Now we're on the precipice of AI, but I wonder as to whether or not that aspect of, we're going to just disclose, give this all out there to you, Joe Public, the society, and do with it what you want. Here's all the information we have right now. Whether or not that will be an imploding scenario for our society, for our government, what could possibly happen in the long run. And I don't know whether or not that's an argument that happens amongst those of you and your peers.
I think it's the way it's handled. I could see where that scenario would play out, but if it's handled properly and it's handed to the scientific community as a whole properly, I think we can get through this paradigm shift. Absolutely. But if we keep locking up these programs and classifying everything for the next 50 years, we're not going to be making any progress. And you can see they're already starting to kick this can down the road further and further. In fact, it was no less than Gordon Cooper, Mercury 7 astronaut Gordon Cooper, who said that we're currently 100 years behind where we should be right now. Absolutely. We're still pounding nails into 2x4s to build these box houses. We're flying no faster now than when the 747 first flew in 1969. It's over 50 years ago, and we're still flying just as fast as we were 50 years ago. That whole that's all a big problem. Our shipping with the tankers taking so long to get this. We are living in a dream world here. This is a matrix that we have to break. We are absolutely 100 years minimum behind where we should be.
We are looking at, though, at the same time, again, this is about economy. This is about commerce, and slowing things down allows people's brains to be able to focus on where all the chips fall. And that's the bottom line of it. Technology works a lot faster than the human brain does. And so it's not going to be handed out there, to my opinion, to my thought process, so long as those particular people in government are in control and are, they've got their necks under the foot of corporations. They're not going to risk either the political position or the monetary position. So they're always going to sit there and slow the gears. But I agree with you 100%. I mean, we saw, the technologies we thought in the 60s that were just going to explode. And there's not been much motion over the last 50 years. I agree with you 100%.
But there have been, in our past, there have been incredible leaps in technology as they were evolutionary. And it seems as though at a time when they should be exponentially better, they're not, which is, and you talk, interesting dichotomy there.
Mhm.
There have been these such forward leaps in the industrial age and the technology age. And then suddenly here we are now. And like you said, we're not flying planes any faster, Michael.
Nope, we're not. We're not. It's still profitable for them to build dinosaur obsolete technology. It's still profitable for them to do that. Why would they want to risk losing trillions of dollars with
Yes.
getting rid of cars, getting rid of coal fire plants, nuclear? Why would they want to risk this multi-trillion-dollar industry over this new technology? So it's going to be a fight for sure. It's going to be a fight.
Why are we still not advancing as quickly as we should in the medical field? And again, with your experience, and we're talking about these craft that have been retrieved, along with that, in a lot of these reports, there were also bodies that were retrieved. There has to be some sort of an advancement privy to those particular people as well. Does it come down to, again, and I don't want to say pharmaceutical. Listen, we don't have socialized medicine in this country, but in other countries that may have had experience with extraterrestrials do.
Mm-hmm.
So they should be far more advanced if it's all about slowing down the gears. Why haven't we, though, as a society, as people, we've not advanced further from a medical standpoint?
You would like to think that after 80 years of retrieving these craft and bodies, that they learned something, right? Something other than a weapons technology or a metallurgical advancement or something you can employ in a stealth fighter or a stealth bomber. There's got to be biomedical advancements. For instance, a lot of these craft, when they retrieve the bodies, they said that the one-piece tight-fitting flight suits that these beings are wearing is so fully integrated into their body and skin, it's as though they're one unit. So there's something going on there, and these can be, it's kind of like a biomimetic integration into the craft itself that feeds into the skin of the craft, and they operate as one complete harmonized unit. That's something that I'm sure has some type of a biological medical advancement, and I'd love to see the advancements they've made.
Ken?
Well, I know that you have a presentation that, and we're looking forward to it.
Sure.
On crash retrieval. Can you cite any technology that may have derived from reverse engineering any alien technology that's common to us today that we may not know about, that actually had its origins in reverse engineering these craft or technology? Is there something that
Sure. Well,
I keep hearing about microwave ovens and things like that.
It's kind of a two-edged sword because as the list goes, fiber optics, lasers, integrated circuits, night vision. But I will point out that a lot of these had a predecessor prior to 1947. There's German technology, like on the Panzer tanks. They had night vision on Panzer tanks prior to 47. So there's this double-edged sword. Was it the Roswell debris or was it German technology? There could be an argument for both. Velcro is a part of it too. Like some of these beings, they had Velcro on the back of their sections of their flight suits that integrated into the suit. They had no seatbelts on this thing. It's a brilliant way to secure a pilot. Now, was that a retrieved technology that was reverse engineered, or is that something that was already pre-existing? So there can be an argument made for both. But in a nutshell, those are some of the things that Colonel Corso had talked about as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good.
I sit here and absolutely stunned where we are and with the possibilities of what has transpired so far. And are we at this point in time going into the realm of pseudoscience again? It's a shame to bring it up in this, and bear with me as I go through this with you, Michael, but yet we're talking about all these different experiences, sightings, testimonies with people of extreme rank and file that have come upon these UFOs, come upon these experiences of first, second, third, even fourth encounters. Yet it's not been produced in such an evidentiary way to this point in time, even though we've gone before Congress, even though there have been meeting upon meetings that have been out there to say, look, it's here. Our pilots have seen it. Our naval crews have seen this, but it's still not biting to this point in time. Is the disinformation establishment that crafty? Because you look at our government today and you sit there and go, how do we even pass a bill? You're going to tell me that they're that skillful when it comes to this, even from the military side? Or is it just one of those situations where there are just too many people who want to be naysayers and not open their eyes to what's going on around them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, because we had the congressional hearings July of this year, and we're months beyond this now, and it seems like nothing's happened. It hasn't grown legs. It hasn't had traction. What are we missing here? I think what we're missing is the physical evidence. Very few people are going to believe that these retrieval operations are real until they see the actual physical evidence, the body, the debris. That's what the American people are waiting for. That's what the world is waiting for. Anything less than that, and we're just totally spinning our wheels. So not only do these military whistleblowers need to come forward as a united coalition in Congress, but we need to subpoena their bosses, and the bosses will lead back to the facilities where they keep all this. And then we need to have teams go in there through legal means and bring this material out. That's the only way this is going to work, because the way this game is played, this was explained to me a while ago, is they don't care what you know, they care what you can prove. And the only way we're going to prove this is with the physical evidence.
Bill, before I turn it over to you, though, I want to get one take from you, Michael. The verbiage during that congressional meeting, that hearing, is non-human biologic, not extraterrestrial,
right?
Not subterrestrial. Are we missing something in the verbiage? Are we missing that they're trying to say, well, this, we were doing experiments and we had dogs or we had monkeys, so that was the non-human biologic that was on that craft, but it really essentially was our craft. It's what we did, but the pilots were not human. So the accountability factor involved with it. What's your take on that use of that language? Because I'd never heard that before July.
It's very interesting detail, isn't it? Very minute detail. There could be a lot wrapped up into that conversation. One of the avenues that could be promoted, though, is that there is something out there called PLF, Program Life Form. And these are ETs that look like ETs. They match the form, fit, and function of ETs, but they're not ETs. They have a carbon fiber exoskeleton chassis. They have a synthetic exterior. Once they're broken into, they have integrated circuits. They've got fiber optics. They've got a central processing unit. They look all the world like an ET, but they're not. Maybe that's what he's referring to. I mean, it's pregnant with possibilities.
Maybe there are humans right now walking around that look human, but may not be human, and almost in that same similarity what you're describing with an ET. But I want to ask you, because recently we heard that this amendment that was going on in the Senate is probably dead on arrival. And I don't know if they're going to redo the language in the bill to try to find a way that they can get access to the privy information, the classification. Because the problem, Michael and Ken, is that under the Department of Energy Act of 1954, you have two classifications, acknowledged and unacknowledged SAPs, special access programs. And under that falls the umbrella of all these aerospace companies, and contractors. There's a lot of money involved here, and it's all black op programs. How are we going to get access, not so much to the acknowledged ones, because those go through a declassification,
right?
But it's those unacknowledged that they say it's so ultra classified that congressional individuals can't even get access in a skiff and to try to get that information to bring it to the public to have transparency. So what do we do now?
The best way to answer that is to take it back to the military whistleblowers and have more of those military whistleblowers come forward that can bring us to their bosses. That's the only way I can think about this, because a frontal approach is going to be messy, right? A frontal approach is going to be very messy. So there's got to be a legal way to do this. However, since they just axed this legislation, it looks like even the democratic process is not fulfilling the wishes of the people, or even that process isn't working. So I still think it boils down to the whistleblowers and the crash retrievals. And that's why I'm so big on crash retrievals, because it's got everything wrapped up to it. If we can get evidence of those, that would be the best shot.
Now, Ken brought this up earlier, David Grush. Now, Grush, now I know a lot of people that have seen his paperwork, have done the research. They say this guy is legit. His background is legit. That's not the question. First, a lot of what was told to him that he mentioned at the hearing is secondhand. That's one. Mm-hmm. Two, how do we know that he's not being fed information so he can run with it and thus go to these hearings and say, well, this is going on, etc.? Do you think there are whistleblowers in the wings that are the firsthand, the ones that the information that they have had actually seen the crash retrieval craft or the bodies? Do you think that's something that we may see in the near term future?
I think his supervisors have a closer need to know, but ultimately, Bill, we don't need Mr. Grush. I mean, it's good to have him as part of the process of bringing this out, but let's not forget the 119 crash retrieval cases with all the military witnesses that Leonard Stringfield had brought up. So that's something that we technically don't need just everything falling on Mr. Grush. Certainly, we have to consider what came before his testimony as well.
Yeah,
I think corroboration will be the thing.
Corroboration, correct.
This. I mean, it has to be. We're going to have to live with that with for now, mm-hmm. As Michael said, without bodies, without a craft, without everything that beyond a presidential statement at some point. But the other thing is there are a couple of different sources of income here. Of course, there's the American taxpayer and the $790 billion or so that we allot to the military. And then they do a really bad job. Either they get amnesia or their accountants aren't very good, because we're never quite sure where that money goes exactly. But then on the other hand, you have bidding going on with private contractors, which is another source of economic revenue into those type of programs. The military industrial complex right now mm-hmm. is completely out of hand. And this is not like Ken said this. This is not a revelation. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And the only thing I'll push back a little bit, Michael, on is the lack of a leap in technology does not necessarily mean that it doesn't exist.
Sure.
It's just being the delivery system is different. It's being channeled somewhere else. I love these videos where we get shown the lasers on operation on boats right now, on destroyers. And mm-hmm. There's no way that this is going to be on YouTube if there's not 10 times that someplace else that we don't know about.
Right.
If they're disclosing that type of thing. So it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. It is. It's extremely frustrating. But what I want to ask you guys, best guess, what's going to happen in those skiffs? Where mm-hmm. David Grush says, well, I can tell you in private, I can't tell you if I've seen these things, because he was asked directly, have you seen these craft? He said, I can't answer that. I'll be glad to do it in private session. So, best guess again.
My best guess is I believe that it's going to be more foot dragging. It's going to be more kicking the can down the road. This personally for me, I believe this is the final curtain call on disclosure because these witnesses are passing away. These legacy crash retrieval programs, the people that were involved in these programs, those that loaded the craft on the 18-wheeler tractor trailers and shipped them to Wright-Patterson or maybe McDill. These people are passing away at a rapid rate now. So I don't foresee anything huge coming out of that whole process. I think we should still focus on the remaining witnesses that Stringfield had talked about because we have a lot more there. There's still a lot more meat to bite down on here. And these people need to be contacted, interviewed. Those programs need to be drilled down on before we lose in a very important part of our national history.
Yeah.
No
Sometimes
way.
people don't give themselves enough credit for the power we actually do have.
And
I think we've been pressed to the point where we just say, it's the old, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Ken, anything that's going to be in that skiff is so classified. It's not leaving that room. They may see it. They may get access to it, but the public is never going to see it. Because
but the thing is, are they even knowing the politicians that are in place right now? Because we keep electing some real wingnuts, right? Do you think anybody is going to look at and you insert the name of your favorite congressman or congresswoman here, are going to trust these people with that type of sensitive information?
Exactly. Leaks. They'll leak it. That's what they'll do. They'll leak it. But here's the thing, before we continue the conversation, Tim Burchett, Republican House member, has been really trying to push transparency. And I agree with him on one valid point, and that is I am not signing a blank check to approve any kind of funding for this UAP R&D, whatever they're going to do, without you showing me something to say, okay, this is what it is. Now I'll sign my name, because they're all frustrated. They're not getting information. So why would I sign a blank check for something I don't know nothing about?
You don't have to. You just sign a check for something else. The funds are diverted. That's the way it works.
There's no oversight. There's no audits. What's going on?
Listen, you can expect that if that money needs to be appropriated, somewhere along the way, that person who has to approve it is going to be integrated, and that's across the board. Even with Grush, there's going to be two aspects that are going to be the end game in this. It's integration, those people brought in for the right amount of money, or termination, they disappear. It's just that heinous, and it's just that theatrically evil, but that's the way that it works out there. No one who has that ambition and that power and that wealth is not going to get what they want. Bottom line, you and I or anybody else out there who has to pay bills and live a normal life will never be given that. Now, let's say Michael decides one day he's going out there and he's doing a contact investigation and literally makes contact. And actually, they learn his name, and they're going back and forth. I'm talking with extraterrestrials or subterrestrials, and it's all right there for him. He is not going to go on the Jimmy Kimmel show and say, this is what I've got. He's not going to post a YouTube video. He is either going to be immediately integrated for a huge paycheck, or he's going to be terminated. They'll get rid of him one way, shape, or form. That's just the reality of power in today's world, in my opinion. So,
dark, bleak.
I will say what
Michael.
No, yeah, but I was going to say Michael, I think, has, let's say, insight to what's going on in DC. Okay, now he's doing a lot of research, like he mentioned. He mentioned the work of Leonard Stringfield. That this book, though, $100, is one heck of a book. The information in this book is absolutely stunning, amazing, And a lot of the work that Michael is doing is based on what's in this book.
True.
When he was here about 3 weeks ago, and he brought a binder that was this big. I'm not kidding. And all kinds of paperwork. We went around the Hudson Valley and we stopped at a few locations that there were some pretty big cases. But a lot of the public, I didn't even know. And I've been involved with this for quite some time. When he was showing me the cases, and he's got witness testimony, actually from some witnesses, the official document that they submitted. I mean, he's got all this information. He's very meticulous when he does his research. But I was looking at these cases. He's bringing them out. And I'm like, I've never even heard of this. The public doesn't even know. What Roswell, Mike, how many cases before Roswell retrieval? Possibly 5, 6?
Well, you've got Cape Girardeau, that's 41. You've got Battle Los Angeles, that's 42. There's a case to be made for a 33 crash. So, there are definitely things prior to Roswell, no doubt about it. Plus the case that we can talk about tonight in 46 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which was Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio at the time. So we're already 4 in prior to Roswell.
Mhm.
I mean, come on. And that's why Michael is definitely, this is one of his main objectives. And I'm not speaking for him, but he's here because we've had this conversation. He wants a lot of these cases to get out to the public, not to be swept under the rug, because everybody hears about the same old cases, not to discount what happened at Roswell possibly or Rendlesham or some of these other, but these are cases that have been regurgitated 1,000 times over.
Right.
But if you read the cases in here, I'm telling you, it's stunning based on what Leonard Stringfield did, on the research he did, the people that were interviewed, the level of the people that were involved in these cases. It's incredible. I would say this is almost like the holy grail of UFO
It
research.
is the Holy Grail. It is the Holy Grail.
I mean,
absolutely.
It's like that. So he's doing incredible work in trying to get to these cases and investigate them. And I'm just going to say it right now, Mike. You know it's coming.
What's that?
In January, he's going to be starting a show on KGRA called That's Classified.
Oh, awesome.
And I hope that the public pays attention to the content, because they're going to learn a lot about cases that they're not familiar with, never possibly heard of. And the witness testimony, the interviews, the documents. I mean, and like I think it was George mentioned earlier, the artist renditions by the people that he gets to work, the people that he has involved to do these illustrations. It's going to be incredible. He told me when he was here, these guys, and he was, like I said, he spent a weekend. He's got a storage facility. He brought one binder like this built. I've got 272 things in my out west. I'm like, what? So can you imagine the stuff that he's been doing? And we look forward to working together in 2024 on doing some research here in the Hudson Valley.
Ken, when you get a moment, private message Michael so that we can get him to simulcast on Dead Air with his new show in January, right?
We'll go live from the Hudson Valley. It's a hop, skip, and a jump from me.
Right.
Don't tell Bill.
So I'm excited to welcome him to the family. And
yes,
like I said, we're going to be working on this. And the public is, like I said, I was stunned and I couldn't believe the cases he was showing me. Ken, it's mind-blowing. And a lot of stuff, he came fully prepared, Ken, with paperwork. Bill, it's like this. Let's go. We're going to Indian Point. We're going here. We're going over there. We went all over the place, and it was so much fun. We actually went to a case that was in Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. Dennis Sant. Is that his name, Michael?
Correct.
And it's in Brewster, New York. So we're there. We parked the car. He's got all his papers. He's shuffling through all the papers regarding this case. And we're just sitting there. And there's all houses around. And it's like, oh my gosh. They probably think we're like undercover agents or something because we're just sitting in the car. But it was so much fun to engage and be on a location because we went to like 4 of them. But because of it, And believe me, we went to a mobile police station. We tried. We ran into a woman that was raking leaves on a dead end street, and we jumped out the car. Let's do it. Because he's like, we're very much alike. We're hyper. Let's just do it. Come on. And he got information that led him now on another trail, which he did get some documents from that contact. So this is how it works. Boots on the ground. You know that as the investigator that you are, Ken. In order to get things done, you got to have the boots on the ground and do the work.
Right.
And that's what he does. So
the
both of you and George.
Participant observer approach,
right.
which is what people who have when the earth is your laboratory, that's what needs to happen.
Exactly.
Not a control.
And networking.
Bill, how much time do we have to break? About 7 minutes?
7 minutes.
Okay, so what I would like to do, Michael's been kind enough to bring some things with him regarding crash retrieval, and I would like to get into that. And Bill, when we have to go to break, let us know. And we have this that we can pull up, so I will let you or George or whoever, and we'll give Michael the floor here, because I think this is going to be very enlightening for our audience tonight to maybe let them see a little bit more of a look behind the curtain here at exactly the seriousness of this. And I think they're going to be fascinated by this. They might be, it's a combination of being fascinated and maybe a little bit frightened, but, here we are.
One of the best PowerPoint presentations you're going to see the information that he's going to provide while he does it. I mean, it is exceptional. So
Michael,
I'm going to bail.
What?
I'm going to bail. See ya.
No,
and I'll be behind the scenes and enjoying it with everyone else that's viewing or listening right now. So a pleasure to be on with a few minutes with you and George as well. And happy holidays to you guys and happy New Year to you and your families.
You too, Bill.
So, Michael, we're going to leave you to your own devices here. We'll bring up whatever you want to do. I know I'm going to disappear for a few minutes here. So please, floor is yours.
Okay. And Michael, make sure that you've got about 6 minutes now for your 2-hour presentation. Go.
Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to minimize this and then go into here. And then, so let's go to from beginning. So do you see this full screen?
Can you do, or is Ken doing it behind the scenes? Okay. No. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So you see that full screen. Okay. All right, so this presentation, we'll start from the beginning here. I'm going to rip through some of the couple quick slides just to get going here, but this is retrievals of the third kind, cosmic crashes, corpses, and cover-ups. I'm glad we talked about the Holy Grail, because it is the crash retrievals that are going to be the Holy Grail that facilitates this disclosure, because the crash retrievals have the bodies, the debris, and the craft themselves. And like I said before, nothing less than that is going to work to get this disclosure going. We're going to need this kind of firepower to move this whole field forward. I'm not going to read all of this, but just the bottom section here, just to give everyone an idea of where Leonard Stringfield got this information. These are the sources that he came up through here that gave him the information. So we've got 3-star U.S. Air Force generals. We've got fighter pilots, astronauts, commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, neurosurgeons, pathologists, theoretical physicists and mathematicians, U.S. Army officers, U.S. Navy officers, military police, high-level military Pentagon officials, top military brass, scientists and engineers who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and other government facilities. So in other words, these are the caliber of firsthand military witnesses that you want to come forward telling us these accounts of the bodies and the debris. That's what we want. Let's just go to number 2 here. This is some of the interesting quotes. There are not now, nor ever have been, any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is from their own press release, July 1980. So my question is, let's see what the witnesses are telling us, and let's compare that to what the government is allegedly telling us. And let's see who wins out here. I want to highlight Leonard Stringfield. This is the gentleman that is the man of the hour. He passed away in 94. And over this 30-year period, he collected dozens and dozens of these crash retrieval cases from firsthand military sources. We'll skip down to just the second to last bullet item here. His lecture on UFO crash retrievals at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, caused an international sensation. Yeah, that's correct, because this was the first time. He's the person who coined the term UFO crash retrieval. And during this time, this whole area of research was still in its infancy stage. These terminologies were starting to just begin to be put forth here. And it was a double-edged sword, because the agreement that Leonard made with his witnesses is they could maintain an important part of our national history by getting this story out, but their identities had to be protected. And so that's why there was a little bit of pushback at this 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio. But we've got the testimony. We do have it. Cincinnati Enquirer, July 19th, 1993. Author continues quest for truth about UFOs. Quote, "What I've collected has staggering implications for mankind. This would be the biggest thing since Christ, really." We can make an argument. It's very big. It could be something absolutely revolutionary. Now, somewhere out there appears to be 22 bank boxes of original correspondence, letters, diagrams, maps, audio tapes, and testimony from his sources. Now, I've been told that what Leonard wanted published, he had published. The rest of it may have been scrapped. That's a sorry case if that's true, but we still have his status reports. We still have the 65 3-ring binders from his original notations. So we have enough meat to go on to really piece these cases together and get them illustrated.
Michael, we got to go to break, but
okay.
I don't think that those particular pieces of paper were destroyed. They probably wound up in the same warehouse as the Ark.
That's right. That's right. Let's hope that's the case. Yes.
We're going to go to break here, guys. We'll be back in 3 minutes and continue this incredible presentation with Michael Schratt. You're watching Dead or Alive on the Dead or Full Spectrum channel. Stay with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you would like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake, kickstart your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, You are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to the second hour of our show with a very special guest, Michael Schratt, and we are going into a deep dive about UFO retrieval and the UFO extraterrestrials, their pilots, their passengers, and we're having an interesting presentation of eye openers. And again, I cannot thank you enough for presenting that to us on the show, Michael. I want to check something real quick here, see how this works, because StreamYard always comes up with new ideas, new technology, but I wanted to see if this works. And it does. So I can actually put you on screen there, and I'll take myself off. And Ken, anything to add with Michael before we continue on with the presentation?
Absolutely not, other than to thank him again for this. And I am going to sit back and enjoy this myself, because I think the best is yet to come. So with that, Michael, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this is the publication that we're going to be discussing this evening. This is the source material where I got this information. I'm going to give you the case number, the page number, so that you can read about all of the intricate details of these crash retrieval cases. For instance, where the bodies were sent, how many military personnel were involved, how they retrieved the craft, where the craft were sent. It's all basically wrapped up in this publication, UFO Crash Retrievals by Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. You can get this publication on Amazon. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but it's absolutely worth every penny. I kind of like to start here. So if you went to Vegas, I counted 119 cases within the Leonard Stringfield collection. If you went to Vegas and you went to a roulette wheel and it had 120 spaces and you bet 119 chips, you're not going to lose. I mean, you're virtually going to win every time. So technically, the odds are on our favor because we only need one of these cases to be authentic. And then this whole concept of UFO crash retrievals not being true completely falls apart. So again, the odds are in our favor. I want to give credit to my friend Rudy Gardea as being the sketch artist who put these cases and made them come alive. And I want to start here. This is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. It had not become Wright-Patterson Air Force Base until 1947. The primary source for this one is a private. He worked in records management. And in this case only, this is from Space, the Final Frontier, page 59. This is by Clark McClellan. And it's the only time we will actually divert here. This is the cover of his book. This is also mentioned in a biography about Stringfield. So there is a tie-in, there is a reference. Within that publication was this sketch right here. Now, this craft was 15 feet in diameter. It was 7 feet tall. It had a series of rectangle-shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference. It had no visible seams, essentially, no fasteners, no socket head cap screws, no welds, no Zeus fasteners. It came in by a railroad flat car from Arkansas. It had this polished aluminum chrome exterior. So let's go to the next slide here. This is my AutoCAD drawing that gives you an idea of what this thing looked like. So if you look at the hidden line in the center, that's a central column that's 3 feet in diameter that starts at the bottom of the craft, goes all the way through the center, and terminates on the upper wall ceiling. On the upper right-hand cutaway drawing that I've done an enlargement of, you can see I've peeled back the skin, showing you the interior of the vehicle. Now you can see this central column. Now, if you look on the front view here, I've got this little red dot, and that is the attempted point of entry. and they were using diamond tip drill bits to breach not only the hull of this craft, but whatever these windows were. So this is something that pops up and is kind of woven as a tapestry or fabric that goes through a lot of these cases. At least 3 other cases where military personnel, white lab coat technicians are desperately trying to breach the hull of these craft with these diamond tip drill bits. It keeps popping up again and again. This is the first pass that I created just to give myself an idea of what this actually looked like. But I think we can do better than that. So let's go to my friend Joseph Wraith's drawing. And now you can see this thing really coming into view here. So it's 15 feet in diameter, 7 feet tall. It came in by a railroad car, 1946 from Arkansas. So we're way prior to Roswell now. And again, this little red dot is the attempted point of entry. If you look on the upper right-hand blow-up view, we've peeled back that skin to show the interior. So let's take everything that we put together from the report and the sketch. And I said, okay, Rudy, I want you to give me this private and records management, because his friend was an MP at the base, and he was supposed to deliver this letter to this high military brass at the facility. And this MP said, you know what? I got something I want to show you. So he leads him into this hangar. They go into the back section of the hangar, and sitting on the hangar floor is this 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that has this polished chrome aluminum exterior. And let's do a drawing and get an idea what this thing actually looks like. So the report says that off to the right, and that's what you can see in this drawing by Rudy here, there was a tarp that was covered up and folded, maybe in force. So it was kind of small, but it was off to the right, sitting on the floor. In the foreground, there was a toolbox with an electric drill with a diamond tip drill bit. So that's something that pops up again and again. So there were a couple of different teams, white lab coat technicians, that would work their shift. And then when they were done, the next shift would come in. This is something that's talked about multiple times. So let's take the original sketch, the eyewitness report, and Rudy's drawing, and let's see if we can do a full color rendering, really make this thing comes alive. So this is by Joseph Wraith. Want to give him credit. This is what this gentleman could be describing here to the best of our ability. This is the best we can come up with. And just it appears that in the 1940s, the 1950s, the early 1960s, all roads appear to lead to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, because a number of reasons. They had the aeromedical lab there. They had the foreign technology division. So they had the metallurgical technology to analyze this material that would later be integrated into the aerospace industry. Okay, next one. Papagos Indian Reservation, west of Globe, Arizona. This is January 1947. So we're already 2 in now, and we're still not to Roswell yet. This is north of Superstition Mountains. The primary witness was in the Navy during World War II, and this is page 93, case A10. So if anyone wants to follow along in the book, that's the reference. Page 93, A10 is the case. So in this case, we've got 2 military personnel. They're driving down this unimproved area west of Globe, Arizona, not too far from the Superstition Mountains, and they are met with 2 MPs with carbides. And they're challenged immediately, told to vacate the area. Off to the left, and then 100 feet down this unimproved road area, they see this 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It's 18 feet tall. It has a dome on top. It augured in at a 40-degree angle. It has a series of 2 rings wrapped around the outer circumference, and then there's these indented sections that are also wrapped around. Now, I've got another case from 46 time frame with the same type indented section. So this is something that we see on multiple cases. So let's take this drawing and let's see if we can make it come alive even further and go to the full color rendering by Joel Payne. And this is what we came up with. We've got that 40-degree angle. We can see the retrieval operation is just beginning to be underway. We are west of Globe, Arizona, within the vicinity of the Superstition Mountains. And this is what these military witnesses are telling us. And you could throw out 2 or 3 of these, but when you have hundreds of these firsthand military witnesses with proper credentials telling us that these retrieval operations are absolutely authentic, it's important that we consider their testimony. Okay, next one. White Sands Missile Range, July 4th, 1947. Now we're finally getting into this Roswell timeframe. Primary eyewitness was a technical sergeant in the U.S. Army Air Force, and this is page 196 from the book. Now, I want to mention that in this case, the entire operation took place at night at White Sands Missile Range, and I've got the map here that shows you where all this went down. And this is what actually took place. It was a 150-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had a dome on top. They brought in floodlights. They brought in searchlights, spotlights. The entire area was absolutely excruciatingly well lit. So they had motion picture cameras rolling. They had still photography. They had people with Geiger counters going around this thing. So somewhere out there in a government warehouse, not only do they have gun camera footage of all the aerial encounters, but they've got 8x10 black and white glossy photographs. They've got motion picture film reel of these operations. So all of that information could be brought into congressional hearings, which would be a very good point of evidence to really bring these cases out. So let's go to the full color rendering that we put together. And now you can see this retrieval operation coming into view. All of these light-alls, they've got the generators, you've got the motion picture film reels, you've got the still photography, and this is what it may have looked like. This is a large craft. In many cases, we hear that, how do you move such a huge craft? In many cases, they bury these at the site, or there is a technology where these craft come apart in pie segments, and then they use M123 tank transporters to ship them out in these pie segments. That's something we've heard about before. Actionable item here. Since still photography and motion picture film was recorded of this event, senators and congressmen with the appropriate security clearances should track down and utilize this evidence for future public hearings. We hope this happens. It needs to happen. Next one, UFO crash retrieval 1947. Seen in a warehouse at Berkeley, of all places. Albert Bruce Collins, now deceased. He was a metallurgical engineer. He's the source of the information. And this is page 197 in the book. So this gentleman was absolutely at the right place at the right time when this 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy truck backs into this warehouse at Berkeley. Could still be there today. Difficult to say, but it could still be there today. And this is what this gentleman saw. He described this 30-foot long, egg-shaped craft, 15 feet tall. It had a crack right down the center of it. So it looked like this cracked egg. It had a yolk in the center that was about 3 feet in diameter. He said it had a composite panel in the forward section of this egg, and then wrapped around the outer circumference of this 3-foot diameter yolk was another composite panel. There were 2 bands wrapped around the outer mid portion of this craft, and then on the lower right-hand bottom section of the craft, it appears that there was an implosion and there was shrapnel and metal pieces coming off the side of it. And this gentleman was in part of the metallurgical engineering team. So I'm sure that they tested this, they analyzed it, they have small pieces of it. Those would be a lot easier to vacate from the facility rather than this large craft. So is it possible we can get our hands on some of this debris? Something that we should consider. So let's take this drawing from Rudy and let's see if we can make this thing come alive with a nice color illustration. And here's what we came up with. You see this composite panel in the forward section. You've got this 3-foot diameter yoke in the center, and then off to the lower right, we've got the shrapnel coming out. So it could have had an implosion. Maybe this was shot down. My question is this the entire craft itself, or is this the propulsion system of something that it fits inside that's much larger? That's something that I think is important to consider. Next one, Fort Polk, Louisiana, summer 1953. This is Herman Johnson. So we've got the names of some of these people. We can track these people down if they're still alive. He was a private in the Army. This is case A1, page 80. And let's go to the drawing here by Rudy. Now, this is a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. I wonder, is it of the same family of the one we just mentioned earlier? It had a fin that was still rotating, wrapped around the outer portion of the craft. There were 3 ETs that were being helped by medical personnel coming out of the entryway hatchway door. Now, there was another being that was being carried off in a stretcher. He appeared to be the comrade of the other 3, and they were trying to establish communication with their fallen comrade. Now, I also want to mention that the ETs that came out of this craft, they were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. They had oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose, and they had no knee joint. So when they were walking, it was this staggered footprint type maneuver. It wasn't like how we walk. This was a much more rigid, because if they were only bending at the hips, so they had no knee joint. That was something that was reported in this case. So let's take this drawing. Let's go to the full color rendering. And this is by Joseph Wraith. Now you can see this whole scene coming into view. He also mentioned in the report by Leonard that the ground area within the localized vicinity of where this craft came down was like burning hot. It was red. It had this kind of a maroon hot red color to it. So that's a key point in this feature. Let's zoom in now and get a little bit of a closer look. And now you can see these ETs exiting this craft, helped by the medical personnel. And again, this is within the Stringfield collection for anyone to read. We'll go to about a 40-degree look-down angle. You can see the comrade being carried off into the ambulance truck. And then let's go to the next illustration here. Now you can see this one of these fallen comrades and these mittens that they were wearing. That's also something that was talked about within this report, these strange mittens that these beings were wearing. Okay, next one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1953. Michael Olvey is our primary source and our witness. He was Army Reserves. He was a warrant officer. This is page 15, case 18, abstract number 8 by Leonard Stringfield. And what this gentleman described is a 4-engine cargo transport plane pulling up onto the tarmac. It may be associated with hangar complex number 4, which you say here in this photograph. And it may actually be inside this hangar. This is hangar Bay E. I don't know that for sure if it was this hangar, but it may be in this hangar. So we've got this DC-7 cargo, 4-engine cargo transport. Now picture this actually taking place inside the hangar now. So this DC-7 taxis up onto the tarmac. It enters the hangar bay doors close, and then on the aft port side of the aircraft, there's a cargo bay door that opens up, and then a forklift shows up, and he starts offloading these pallets. And on the top part of this pallet, there are 3 wooden crates which have their lids pulled off. So he was at the right place at the right time. So he looked over and he got a look inside these crates, and what he described were 3 humanoid-looking bodies. They were 3.5 feet tall. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. They had an oversized head. They had an oversized eyes. They had a slit for a mouth and a minute nose. They were being basically protected on this white netting or mesh that suspended them off the bottom of the crates to protect them from the dry ice freezer burn below. And he's watching all of this, like completely awed about all that. He also learned about the debris that was recovered in crates from the crash retrieval. So let's take this drawing and let's go to a full color rendering. And now you can see this retrieval operation in full swing here inside this hangar at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is 1953. Now you can see the steam coming off. That's from the dry ice. And let's go to about a top view looking down, just to give everyone an idea of what these things look like. Now, in the report, according to the military witnesses, he believes that one of these was female because it had breasts. And so that was something that was definitely within the report, 1953. Next one, Walker Air Force Base, New Mexico, April 12, 1954. And I want to just point out that Walker Air Force Base used to be Roswell Army Airfield. We're talking about the same place here. Primary eyewitness was in the Air Force, 1954 to 1955. This is page 82 within the book. Now, this personnel was immediately told to board an H-19 helicopter. This was at night. So he boards this helicopter. They take off from Walker Air Force Base and they fly northbound. They make a left-hand turn. Now they're flying northwest toward Corona, where the original event took place in 47. All this is at night. They're hovering over this scene, which you can see in this drawing by Rudy, and they have a spotlight shining down on this 40 to 50 foot diameter dish-shaped craft tilted up at about a 40-degree angle. And there's a bay door that opens up, and he's taking photographs with a still camera at this whole entire scene. There were 4 bodies retrieved. They were all deceased. Now, when the helicopter landed within the local area of where this craft came down, his absolute first reaction was that the entire place smelled like automobile battery acid. That's something that's talked about in the report. Now, when they went inside the entry hatch of this vehicle, they discovered 2 more bodies for a grand total of 6 bodies. So this is another crash retrieval. Now, I also want to mention that there were lights that were rotating around the outer rim of this craft, and that's what we're going to see in the next illustration, that were still lit and rotating when the retrieval operation really got into full swing here. So by the time they got there, there were already Jeeps on their way. They had 6x6 troop transports on the way. And this is our best representation of what this scene may look like back in 1954. Next one. This is December 1963. We're talking about literally a week or two after the Kennedy assassination, November 22nd, 1963. This is Cherry Point, North Carolina. The primary witness is a Marine. His name is Roy Baker. This is page 152, case 2. And I'm going to go to the map that shows you where this place is. Cherry Point is located just north of Havelock. So he boards this plane. It has blacked out windows, and they fly approximately 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina, and they go to this facility, which he wasn't told what this was or where this was. And when he gets there, these hangar doors open up, and he sees this 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It's 15 feet tall. It looks like a fat hamburger. It has a polished chrome aluminum exterior. There are essentially no seams, no rivets, no fasteners, no socket head cap screws. It has 9 elliptically shaped opaque windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft. Now, this thing was sitting up on scaffolding. And if you look here, you can see these red dots, which are the attempted point of entry by a diamond tip drill bit. And he mentioned that he could just barely see the outline of these very small seams that made up the outline of this entryway hatch. These seams were so fully integrated into the craft itself, you could not put a razor blade in. That's how fully integrated these seams were. Now, this is the full color rendering by Joseph Wraith, just to give you an idea of what this thing looks like. So 40 feet diameter, 15 feet tall, and the red dots are the attempted point of entry. So here are the 3 parameters that they were following here. Number 1, to get into the craft, they tried a diamond tip drill bit, and that completely failed. Number 2 was an acetylene cutting torch. That completely failed. Number 3, they used a laser, and that failed. There's been some pushback and discussions about timing and dates of lasers. And yes, they did have lasers to 1963. That's not in question. What is in question is the actual intensity that they were using within this laser application. All right, next one. This is the original sketch, and we're still talking about the same case here. This is by the Marine himself. This is Roy Baker. This is his original sketch, and I'm just going to break this down a little bit. So if we go to the upper right and upper left-hand corner, you've got this whole place excruciatingly well lit. You can see the scaffolding here. There were 2 sections that you could climb up on, and they had built a catwalk around the scaffolding. You can see the opaque windows. On the bottom of the craft, there's these darker sections. Those are the pads that were used to support this craft. And then if you look very closely at this entryway hatch, there are these small little dots. Those are the dots where you were using the diamond tip drill bit, not only there, but also within these opaque windows. And that's shown in his sketch here. This is a little bit more of a refined drawing by Michael Johnstone. Now, Mr. Johnstone interviewed this Marine back in 1986. So I'm hoping this Marine is still alive. It'd be wonderful to hear his case described in congressional hearings. Here's my final rendering. This is my AutoCAD drawing, somewhat cleaned up. And I just want to bring your attention to this detailed drawing I've done off to the right. He said the primary eyewitness mentioned that there was a 1-inch lip between the outer skin of the craft itself and the outer portion of this opaque windows, an actual visible seam or a visible lip that you could actually feel with your thumb. Something interesting that he talks about here. Also want to mention that according to the Marine, on the floor directly below this craft, they taped off a ring, and his job was to guard this craft for a period of 2 weeks and to shoot to kill anyone who would breach that circle. That was his mandate. That was his job for 2 weeks. Now, this is our first pass illustration by John McNeil. And you can see this ring on the floor here. You've got the scaffolding. You've got the lab coat technicians. You've got the military personnel. But I want to mention that after they gave up with the diamond tip drill bit and the acetylene torch, they brought in 2 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy trucks with this electrical generating device on top. And they had 2 heavy gauge cables that went off that led to a laser. And they attempted to enter the craft with a laser. It failed. When they moved the laser away, the only thing that was different, it was warm to the touch. And that's the only effect it had on the craft itself. So let's see if we can sneak inside this facility, and let's breach this chain link fence, and let's get into this top secret military facility. And let's see if we can kind of get a 45-degree look down angle inside this retrieval operation here. Now you can see the scaffolding is sort of coming into view. Let's get a little bit closer. Now we're inside the hangar. You've got the military personnel. You've got the white lab coat technicians. You've got all these lights coming out at a 45-degree angle. We can see the scaffolding. You could actually walk under this craft. You see the white section painted on the floor with the tape section. A little bit closer, he also mentioned that there were CIA types there. So you've got these black suitor type personnel. If you look closely, you can kind of see this lip on the inside section where the skin meets this opaque window. A little bit closer here, now you can see the diamond tip drill bit that they were trying to get in. That failed. They had to go to the acetylene torches. This is a 45-degree look down angle, and now you can see this really nice circle below the craft, and anyone who was not authorized to be in that circle was shot dead and asked questions later. That's how these guys rolled here. Now, on the last day that this Marine, Roy Baker, was there, he said that it was being lifted off the scaffolding and they had a cradle device. It was moved over to this cradle device on a tractor trailer. They dropped it down. They had a different type of a framework that they were building up. And I want to go to the next illustration here. Now you can see this framework, and they started draping over tarps over this framework and getting ready to ship this craft to the next location. And this is kind of what we talked about early on, is one way they keep these secrets is they compartmentalize the information and they move the assets from one location to the next so that not any one person not only has a need to know, but is read into these programs. So here we are, we're basically fully tarped at this point, and we're getting ready to ship this craft out to the next location here to keep this under wraps. This is a drawing by Rudy, just to give an idea of what this may have looked like when they're beginning to move it to the next location here. Now, I want to mention this incident that took place with the laser. According to Roy Baker, who was the first-hand military witness of this, when they turned this laser on, it reflected off the surface of the craft itself, bounced up and damaged a ceiling tile above. This is what he talked about within this report, and you can see that this is being duplicated within this illustration by Joseph Wraith. So there was an interesting event that took place with a laser associated with this retrieval operation. Here's the drawing by the Marine that describes this case. You can see this laser in the foreground, and then the reflection off, and then the damage in the ceiling tile is indicated by X marks the spot. Now, he also mentioned, this is according to this Marine, that these lab coat technicians, they had these colored badges. So if you had a green badge, you were authorized to go to this part of the facility. If you had a yellow badge, you were authorized to go to another section of the facility. If you had a red colored badge, you had full access to the entire facility. So this is something that pops up again and again. These color-coded badging systems are something that comes up. Now, his job, this is the Marine, his job was to frisk people that entered this facility. During the 2 weeks that he was there guarding this, there was one time where he was left alone with this craft all by himself, and he said that nobody frisked him. So he was able to sneak in a small Minox camera. He actually took a photograph of this craft, and I've got his quote down here. It says, "Someday I will tell this story, and by God, people are going to believe me." Unfortunately, that photograph was lost in a flood in 1983. So we were literally this close to getting this photograph, but it was completely lost. So I told my friend Joseph, let's see if we can do a replica of what this photograph might look like if we could still get this. And here's what he came up with. So it's kind of got a little of a blurry look to it. It would be aged, a little bit water stained, kind of has a brown tinge to it, but this is the best we could come up with based on the military witness Roy Baker, his original sketch, and then the sketch from Michael Johnson. This is the best that we could possibly come up with here. Now, the report mentions that there was a United States Secretary of the Navy during this 63 time frame where this person just about got shot because he was just about ready to step over this circle that was painted below the craft itself. I tracked it down to this gentleman. I think he is involved in one way or the other. It'd be nice to get at least some kind of an admission. I don't even know if this gentleman's still alive, but this is something that needs to be tracked down, or we could have records that could be brought into congressional hearings regarding his involvement of this as well. Now, I want to continue on with 4-star Major General Melvin F. McNichol. He was base commander, Tinker Air Force Base. This is Oklahoma, and there's a reason why I'm bringing him up, and this is his obituary here. It says, ex-Tinker Commander Melvin McNichol dies, the Daily Oklahoman, July 11th, 1986. So he was a real person. He was base commander, Tinker Air Force Base. He was friends with Charlotte Mann, who is tied into the 41 retrieval operation at Cape Girardeau. These two were friends, and they were friends for years. They shared a mutual interest in UFOs. And so Charlotte turned to this general and said, "General, we've been friends for all this time. You've never told me anything about UFOs. Are we still friends? Is there something that you want to tell me?" So this general turns to Charlotte and he says, "Charlotte, if you ever repeat what I'm about to tell you, I'll deny it, and it could end my career." And he told her these 3 things. Number 1, he saw a UFO which was located in the West. Now that checks out with the Marine, because he said from Cherry Point, North Carolina, he boarded a plane with blacked out windows and flew 3 hours by Cherry Point, North Carolina. That would put you within the West, just barely, but within the West. He also said that he walked around a UFO on a catwalk which was propped up by scaffolding. This is exactly what the Marine had described. The scaffolding craft propped up, they had a catwalk, same exact thing. And then the general told Charlotte Mann that bodies were recovered and one was still alive. This Marine overheard water cooler talk between these white lab coat technicians of bodies recovered and one was still alive associated with these retrieval operations. So when I heard this from Charlotte Mann at IUFOC years ago, I knew I had a real case, because I don't think Charlotte knew this Roy Baker Marine. I'm pretty sure of it. I'm about 99% sure. So when I heard that, we had independent confirmation from a secondary source that this was a real retrieval operation. Okay, we'll do a couple more here. Fort Riley, this is Kansas, December 10th, 1964. Served in infantry, 1st Division. Aaron, Quebec is the witness. This is page 24, abstract 20. And I want to go to the map. This is Camp Forsyth of where this actually came down. Primary eyewitness boarded a 6x6 troop transport. This is at night. They were driven down a road. They get off this troop transport. They walk into this field, and this is all at night. And what they see is a Bell UH-1 helicopter crisscrossing this open field at night with a spotlight shining down, and they actually come across a 48-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that's 18 feet tall. It had a series of box-like protrusions that were wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft. It had a fin section at the middle that terminated aft to the bottom section of the craft, and then it also had what looked like an exhaust port just below this fin on the bottom of the craft. And this is my SolidWorks drawing. That just gives an idea of what this thing actually looks like. So let's go to Rudy's drawing, and this is at night. And this military personnel, he was told to guard this craft. They had other personnel with biological hazard suits, with Geiger counters checking for radiation. And you can see the spotlight coming down from the UH-1 helicopter. He got very close to this thing. And I want to move on to the full color rendering just to give everyone an idea by Joseph Rather what this actually looked like. So we're coming in at about a 40-degree angle here, and this exhaust port at the back and the fin is coming into view. And if you look closely, you can see these box-like protrusions wrapped around the outer circumference. And this is a little bit more of a, I would say, eye view level, and you could see the same angle and then these box-like protrusions kind of on the profile view that comes into view with the helicopter here. Now, I also want to mention there was another source, independent source, later on that saw this convoy of vehicles that included an M123 tank transporter that had a dish-shaped craft that matched the outward appearance and dimensions of the primary eyewitness. It was covered by a tarp. It had chains over the top. It was coming up a hill. They had blocked off the area, but this gentleman, secondary source, saw this convoy, saw this retrieval operation, and the people associated with this tractor trailer, they had biological hazard suits. They had gas masks on. So there might be a biological agent associated with this vehicle, but we had an interesting secondary independent source that confirmed what our original witness had mentioned. These are the type of equipment that these military personnel were wearing associated with the craft itself. Next case, and this is a bizarre one here. This is Dayton, Ohio, 1965. I included in here because it's part of the entire Leonard Stringfield crash retrieval accounts here. Page 93, case A11. And this is a couple at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the museum. So the couple's looking at this V-2 rocket display, and the husband leaves. He leaves his wife stranded looking at this V-2 rocket display. He starts wandering the back halls of the Air Force Museum. He kind of busts through these double doors, and he is met with this being, which appears to have escaped its underground containment area, about 3.5 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, heavy brow ridge. He was wearing a one-piece, loosely fitting Mercury spacesuit. He had a helmet on. He pointed his index finger toward the primary eyewitness, and then within 10 seconds, all of these lights and buzzers started going off inside the Air Force Museum. And military personnel were ushering everyone out of this very bizarre case. I include it here because it's part of the Stringfield collection here. Now, are we still all together here on this? Are we still together?
We are.
We are. Good. Okay. Next.
We are.
Good. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1966. This is a civil service electrician, page 17, abstract number 13. So that's our primary witness. Now, in this case, the witness brought home a photograph. His son was still up that night. So he comes in at night with a trench coat. He opens up his breast pocket and he says, "Son, I got something I want to show you." So he pulls out of his pocket an 8x10 glossy black and white photograph, and it looks somewhat similar to this. There was a lab coat technician that was holding up by its wrists a dead ET corpse that was wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. On the right-hand side of this photograph, there was a military personnel wearing kind of these fatigues. He also had military boots on, and he was holding up the ET on his other wrist. And his son is he could not believe it. He's beside himself, and his father is discussing this. Apparently, this is a part of a retrieval operation somewhere in the Southwest. It could be New Mexico. It could be Arizona. We don't know. Now, the bottom line on this case is that when he brought the photograph back into the base the next morning, he tried to sneak it in, and he was caught because they discovered that it was missing. He was fired on the spot. So that's the level of secrecy that they really put on this. This is the varsity squad. You can't play with these guys. This is going to be a very difficult case to crack because they clamp down on this. These are the crown jewels of the military industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, this rogue group within the military industrial complex. Now, next one, July 3rd, 1967. This is a Marine, rank was private first class, and this is page 86, case A5 in the book. He was told to guard a prefabricated aircraft hangar at this place in the Southwest. Again, could be New Mexico, could be Arizona. We don't know for sure. It wasn't mentioned in the report. It only said Southwest. So by day 3, curiosity got the best of this particular Marine. So he opens up the flap and he looks inside, and what he sees is a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that has a dome on top. Off to the left of this prefabricated hangar, he saw a walk-in freezer and he saw body bags. He also saw multiple white lab coat technicians with these workbenches nearby the outer portion of this craft. And on the top of these workbenches, there were calipers, there were micrometers, there was analysis equipment, metallurgical equipment, like they were trying to test maybe the skin of the craft somehow. They had other instruments there. There were body bags nearby, but he said he did not see any ET bodies of any kind. So that's what he mentioned. Now let's go to the full color rendering just to give an idea of what this might look like. So, we're already 6, 7, 8 in here. The craft count keeps on going up. The body count keeps on going up. We see these craft being shipped to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They're also being shipped to universities. So you can see that they are desperate to not only reverse engineer the technology, but the propulsion system, the possible weapons advancement, the metallurgical sciences. This is something that they're definitely interested in here. Now, next one, Fort Hood, Texas, late 1960s. This is a private pilot. This is page 91 in the book. So this is right around 1968 timeframe at Fort Hood. And there within Fort Hood is something called Robert Gray Army Airfield. Now, the primary eyewitness was most likely in a 172. He had to make an emergency landing at this unimproved runway. So he lands at this dirt field. Within a minute, he is met by military personnel in a Jeep, and they point their .45 caliber pistols at the primary eyewitness. That's what you see up in Rudy's drawing here on the upper left. While all this is going on, a massive bypass door opens up. Now, you would never know there was a bypass door there because the top surface of the bypass door was camouflaged with rocks, with shrubbery. It had low trees on it. It had the surrounding vegetation on it. It blends in with the background. You would never even know. Now, what he saw within this facility was staggering. Number one, it was an underground runway for 4-engine cargo aircraft. That's the first thing. So this not only was it an underground facility, but it was an underground runway. He also mentioned that there were large banks of computers there. And this is 1968 timeframe. So these would have been large. He also mentions that there were what looked like remote control droids that were monitoring this on wheels. He saw that as well. And then we've got multiple reports of credible eyewitnesses that saw UFOs departing this facility that were being escorted by military helicopters. So this appears to be a staging area for our alien reproduction vehicles that are based on the recovered artifacts. They're using our American test pilots, and they're flying these craft from this facility, and they're being escorted by military helicopters, specifically double rotor CH-47 Chinook helicopters. So the question is there a top secret underground facility located at Gray Army Airfield? A couple of quick things I want to mention. This is by Tommy Blonde, who interviewed a gentleman by the name of Colonel X. This is page 100 in the book, and this is what it says here. The colonel stated that underground installations, as well as isolated areas of military reservations, have squadrons of unmarked helicopters which have sophisticated instrumentation on board that are dispatched to areas of UFO activity to monitor these craft or airlift them out of the area if one has malfunctioned, like in the case of Cash Landrum. Second one here. The technology that is being applied in this underground complex would remind someone of a science fiction thriller. It is unbelievable what they know and can do from this area. This is from the colonel here. So we've got this underground facility. We've got the double rotor, twin rotor CH-47 helicopters. That leads us to this very famous case that I'm sure everyone is familiar with. This is top 3 within ufology. This is the Cash Landrum incident. This is December 29th, 1980, Huffman, Texas. We've got Betty Cash, we've got Vicki Landrum, we've got Colby Landrum. It's around 9 p.m. and they had been looking for a bingo game. They failed twice, and so they basically called it a night. They decided to drive Vicki home, and they're just west of Dayton, Texas. They're actually in Huffman, Texas. They're driving down this road, and it's 6-year-old Colby, who's in the back seat, that notices this white light approaching where the car is driving. All of a sudden, this 90-foot tall, what kind of looks like 2 ice cream cones put together with the wide ends, basically parked itself 150 feet in front of Betty's car. She slams on the brakes. Vicki Landrum goes forward, puts her hand on the dash pad, and her hands and handprints, fingerprints are melted into the dashboard. That's an interesting thing. So Betty gets out of the vehicle. She goes to the hood of the car. She's looking at this craft between 3 and 5 minutes. And every time the craft bobs down, there's a loud blue-colored flame and roaring noise comes out of the bottom of the craft. It bobs back up again. There's a beeping noise, which is screaming a man-made technology. That is a proximity indicator, I believe. And this is all going on. This is December 29th, 1980, so it's cold outside. After about 5 minutes, Betty walks back to the driver's side door, tries to open up the door with the handle, and she burns her hand. She has to take the flaps of her leather jacket to aid her in opening up the car door. Once she gets inside, it's literally boiling hot within the vehicle, and they have to turn on the air conditioning. Now, a few minutes later, as this craft departs the area, there are no less than 23 double rotor Chinook C-847 helicopters chasing after this craft with spotlights on. There were at least 2 Bell UH-1 helicopters and then 1 Sikorsky Sky Crane chasing after this craft. Now, let's go to the Clarion Ledger, December 25th, 1983. What did 3 Texans encounter? Sighting of UFO brought illnesses, but few witnesses. So you've got Betty Cash, you've got Colby Landrum, you've got Vicki Landrum, you've got John Schuessler, who is the principal investigator. Within minutes of Betty Cash dropping off Vicki and Colby, all of these witnesses started getting the very serious effects of radiation sickness, radiation poisoning. They threw up, they had hair loss, they had eyesight problems, they had skin problems, they had lines on their fingernails. This happened within minutes. Here's the map that shows you where all this went down. This is Florida Today, December 4th, 1983. And then I want to go to the full color rendering of what this underground runway facility underground base might look like as a C-130 is coming in. So you can see we've got different craft here. You've got the CH-47s. On the upper left-hand section, you've got the 172 pilot that's being challenged by these military personnel here. I think we can do a couple more. This is California City, summer 1971. Debbie Clayton is the witness. We've got her by name, page 233 in the book. She was at the right place at the right time when this 10-foot wide mushroom top dish-shaped craft came down within her area, within a quarter mile of where she was living. This thing was 5 feet tall. She went over with 4 eyewitnesses. One of them had a still camera that was taking photographs. Now, while all this is going on, within minutes of this thing coming down, there was a convoy of military vehicles. One had an embedded crane built into the trailer section. They had a lanyard portion built around this craft, and they picked this up with a hook device, loaded it onto the tractor trailer, and we believe it was shipped to Edwards Air Force Base, California. Next one, Norton Air Force Base. This is 1973. Air Force photographer, page 160, case 14. This particular photographer, he was in Hawaii at the time. He had his security clearance upgraded. He was flown from Hawaii to Norton Air Force Base, which is in San Bernardino, California. And he was joined by another photographer. They get inside this Air Force vehicle. They drive 1 hour from Norton Air Force Base, according to the report. And then this vehicle stops. And they're lowered down into this underground facility. And when they get out of the car, and I'm going to go to the next drawing by Rudy here, they're told to go into this room, disrobe completely nude, and put on these medical smocks, cover their entire bodies, and they had a covering, just their section on their eyes was open up so they could see. But their job was to enter the craft that was 30 feet in diameter and take still photos of the interior of the craft, the buttons, the switches, the dials, the levers, all the intricate details on the side of the craft. Now, he mentioned...
Now, Michael, we have to interrupt for a second because we are at the end of the time with KGRA.
Okay.
But I know, knowing Ken, and he's so in depth with this, that Ken, we want to extend past here at this point, or what do you want to do, sir?
Yeah, we can finish this if Bill has to go right now. Everybody can keep watching on Dead Air Full Spectrum on YouTube. So we may say at some point goodbye to our KGRA audience, but we're going to bring this to a conclusion. So.
And happy holidays to KGRA listeners as well. We'll see you guys in the new year. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Michael, back to you.
Okay, so I think we can do a couple more cases here, and I want to just kind of finish our thought on this one. Now, it's mentioned very important point within this case is this witness said that this thing was 30 feet in diameter, but when he got inside, and this is his direct quote here, he said, "I could have thrown a football as hard as I could and not hit the other side." That's what he mentioned. So there appeared to be something going on within the interior of this craft, some time warp, space-time continuum, gravity distortion, who knows, but something was going on inside the craft. So I want to go to the full color rendering. Now, this is the outside view looking at this whole facility, and we could be looking at an overhead crane as well. So I want to bring that up as a possibility, but let's see if we can get a bit of a zoom in view, and let's go inside this craft and see what this gentleman was talking about. So here, it looks like it's about 30 feet in diameter. Let's go inside and see what it would look like with what he's describing here. Now, we could throw a football as hard as we could and not hit the other side. So we've got this cavernous interior of this craft itself. This is our best rendering of what Joseph could come up with of what this looked like, this cavernous interior. Now, once he was done, he said that he and his fellow photographer were told to go to another room within this facility where they were autopsying 3 ET bodies, and they had a scalpel, and when the scalpel was inserted, there was this green fluid that came out. So not only did this guy see a craft, but he saw the interior and the ET bodies, which were perhaps connected with this retrieval operation. Okay, so is there any evidence of this whatsoever? So I started digging. I came across this newspaper clipping, Los Angeles Times, July 11th, 1972, and it talks about a tube shuttle system using this electromagnetic suspension. This is 1972 from LA Times, and here's what it says. LA to New York in half an hour, 10,000 mile an hour tunnel train plan developed. And so if you go to the blow up drawing here, they do a cutaway. They talk about vacuum pumps. So they're doing this under a vacuum. You've got these bumpers, lateral coils, suspension gap. They talk about these guideway coils, and they talk about the interworkings of how this actually would be accomplished here. So I thought, let's see if we can get any more evidence that this could actually be true. So I ran across this document. This is Project RAN, Proceedings of the Secondary Protective Construction Symposium, Deep Underground Construction, March 24th, 25th, 26th, 1959, from the RAND Corporation. And this is what they're telling us in their own documents here. It says, just as airplanes, ships, and automobiles have given man mastery of the surface of the earth, tunnel boring machines and shaft sinkers will give him access to the subterranean world. It is our aim to provide machines which will supply the ever-increasing demand in mining and construction of underground facilities. And I just want to go back one here. This is from 1959. What have these defense contractors, Bechtel, other corporations, what have they been doing the last 40, 50 years? What have they been doing with these tunnel boring machines? Have they been connecting all of these underground facilities with these high-speed tunnel systems and tube shuttle systems that was talked about in the LA Times article? Have they been doing this? The evidence is showing that that's exactly what's been going on here. Now, I think we've got time for one more here. This is McClellan Air Force Base, California, 1973. Chris Kofi was basically the person who interviewed test pilot, later astronaut, Ellison Onizuka. This is page 153, case 3. Now, so Ellison Onizuka, test pilot, he's at McClellan Air Force Base. This is near Sacramento, California, 1973. He goes into a briefing room with about 12 other pilots. The lights go down, and what he sees, this is Ellison Onizuka here. What he sees is this general, Air Force general. He's sitting in back of this movie projector. So the lights go down, and this general turns on this projector, and then projected on the far wall are 2 ET bodies on concrete slabs. And he turns around and he's thinking, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. After this 3 to 5 minute movie film, the lights come back on, and there's absolutely no debrief about what they just saw. So it looks like this movie is being farmed out to different military Air Force bases where it's used as a trial balloon to gauge the reaction of our test pilots, our military personnel, our Army personnel. Because within this book, it states that a film like this was definitely brought to different military facilities and is used as a trial balloon to gauge the report. Now, credit goes to Open Minds. This is David Armstrong. His aunt used to work at this facility. They had a library there, and one time this aunt left his family member kind of basically alone with some of the files, and he got to see some files associated with crash retrievals and bodies. So there's a secondary source that talks about this as well. But I want to mention this because later on, Ellison Onizuka became an astronaut, and Leonard Stringfield was going to interview this particular astronaut on a very specific date. But 2 weeks prior to that date, Ellison Onizuka was lost in the Challenger explosion on January 28th, 1986. So we were this close to getting basically firsthand military astronaut witness to talk about this film, but he was lost in the Challenger accident January 28th, 1986. Now, I tracked down his widow. I sent her the report and I sent her the sketch that Rudy had made. I never got a response, so I don't know if she didn't want to talk about it, she didn't want to return my letter, or Ellison never talked to her about this. But fact remains that this is something that Chris Kofi had mentioned to Leonard, and it's now part of the national history here. So really, I just wanted to go over a few of these cases just to give people an idea of the caliber of witnesses, the amount of retrievals, the amount of craft and bodies. These witnesses need to be tracked down, found immediately. This absolutely is the final curtain call. These people need to be brought into these congressional hearings as a united coalition, and that's really how we're going to bring this field forward.
Wow. Amazing stuff.
Speechless.
Michael, speak for George here. Thank you so much for your graciousness and generosity in sharing this with everybody.
Problem.
I mean,
no problem.
It was the proverbial
and scaring the hell out of our audience tonight too. Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's our history. It's part of our history, and it's something that needs to be discussed. It needs to be put forward. This is the big game. This is the varsity team. I can see why they've kept this under wraps, and you can see, so many different agencies. I'm sure a lot of lives have been ruined over this. I'm sure a lot of people want to come forward with this, but now that there's other whistleblowers coming forward, we do have a legislation in place. We have a vehicle in place where they can come forward without any ramifications. And so now it's game on. It's the final curtain call. This needs to happen to preserve an important part of our national history.
If I could, before we get out of here, I do have one question for you, and I've asked this before of guests, but you see various types of craft. You see the boomerangs, for example, like Kenneth Arnold described. You see the classic disc. You see the the football shape or cigar shape. Do you think, and this is just speculation, with an advanced civilization, that they do something similar to we do? We have different vehicles for different purposes. We have trucks, we have pleasure vehicles, we have buses, to transport people. We have vehicles for exploration. Is it conceivable that, and I don't know if this is only one civilization, that's probably a whole show at some point, but the descriptions of the beings seem to be the same. Do you think that's plausible, that these are just different craft for different purposes?
I think it's plausible, but I think another avenue that we want to consider is that there is a percentage of these crash retrieval operations that represent man-made technology. There absolutely is a percentage of those, and you can kind of see the legacy of how the configurations change over the decades. So in the 40s and 50s, you've got the saucer dish-shaped craft. Then you move to these cigar-shaped craft. Then you kind of move over to the Hudson Valley boomerang. You've got different triangular craft. Then you move to flying rectangles. And so the configurations change as the decades progress. So I think there is an absolute percentage of these crash retrievals that are man-made technologies that are still kept under wraps. We've got multiple assets that have never been declassified under the Reagan administration that have still never seen the light of day. So that's the level of secrecy that they put on these.
For the ones that are man-made, do you think they will ever overcome the problem of having you turn your cell phone off before landing on your flight?
Very good. That's nice. I like that.
Someday.
That's great.
Someday they'll show that. It's been an education and very entertaining too. Michael Schratt, I can tell you right now, we would love to have you back. We wish you the greatest of success with your new KGRA show starting in January. We're going to still try and steal you for our channel, but
of course,
we appreciate everything you've done. And just real quick for, again, our listeners, What strategies, what plans do you have going forward besides the writing, the research taking in which direction next as far as what you can reveal?
Well, we're going to do more crash retrieval cases. We're going to do more illustrations, more sketches, certainly more presentations, and just still trying to identify the last of the remaining original legacy crash retrieval witnesses. I'm really interested in these legacy cases because the U.S. military, U.S. Air Force, they want to sweep all this stuff under the carpet. They want to make everything prior to 2006 disappear. I'm not going to let that happen. And I know other researchers aren't going to let that happen. They have this 10-year plan where they're going to roll out things that kind of got scrapped recently. Who's going to wait 10 years for this to come out? We can't wait that long. This needs to happen now. So we are in this critical stage now where this needs to happen. It is the final curtain call. There's not going to be a second pass on this because, I'll give you an example, all of the 509th Bomb Group members, they're all gone. For anybody associated with
Oh, what happened?
Me. You know, he had the extended with just the graphics. So I was closing that out and it closed him out at the same time.
Oh,
Well, hopefully he'll just dial right back in again. So, but, you know, to close off with him and waiting for him to come back, guys, I do want to say this. I said at the beginning of the show, Ken and I will take our holiday hiatus. We will not be here for next Sunday or the Sunday after Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, but we'll be back in 2024. God, I can't believe I'm saying 2024. Unbelievable. Here we are. All right. Got him back. Oh, fantastic.
okay. I got him.
All right.
Okay,
I got him.
Okay. Yeah.
So finish what you were saying. I'm sorry. That was all my fault. I was clicking off the extra screen that you were doing. Didn't need that anymore, but it took both of you up at the same time.
No problem. Yeah. All I was saying is that the legacy witnesses of the original crash retrieval cases, those are the ones that need to come forward because those are the ones that were prior to 2006 for sure. So they can't make those cases disappear. We won't let them.
And they're dwindling.
They're dwindling. They're absolutely dwindling. Yes.
That's the worst part about it. I cannot thank you enough. Ken, any words to add first?
No, other than once again thanking Michael for his generosity in sharing with us. And I'm just looking at the people in chat that got a hell of an education tonight, and just a fascinating topic, one that appeals to me, and I just cannot get enough of this kind of thing where we take a little deeper dive into the things that they want us to know and they don't have a problem with, because we know that there's more out there. And Michael, we wish you the best of luck going forward. Keep swimming.
Yeah, don't stop, because you could see, and we have a very smart audience, and a lot of them were like, this is information I never knew about. So spread that word. Please continue to spread that word.
Thank you. I need that kind of inspiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much as well. Happy holidays to you and best of New Year's.
Okay. See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Right. And we're all set, guys. And Bill is already gone, but we wish him the happiest of holidays. And who knows what 2024 is going to bring. But thank you guys. Thank you guys all for watching. My name is George Lopez with Ken DaCosta. You've been watching Dead or Alive on the Dead or Full Spectrum channel. What do you want to promote there, Ken? Something?
Yeah, a couple of people were asking what's the name of the book again. It's called Dark Files. You can get it on Amazon. Just look up Michael Schratt.
Fantastic. We're all out of time here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Happy holidays. Take care.